Good morning. It's January the 19th. Good heavens, January's almost over. And I want to welcome everyone to the Being Your Own CEO Success Circle. And just to remind, to say to people who are trying to figure out how to get in, there is a link on the community, Being Your Own CEO community page. If you click on that, it'll take you to the registration page. If anybody's out there trying to figure out what to do, maybe they can't see or they can't hear what I'm saying on how to get in. It's a complicated issue, and I've certainly this morning noticed a number of changes to even the little Hangout button that I see on my my screen. It's a Chrome extension. A couple of changes I noticed in there this morning. So anyway, good morning, everyone. I would like for us to begin by introducing ourselves and say where we are and what we do, and say anything that's new that you would like to share with everybody. Oh, there's Paul in the right place this morning. So, although you may be muted, Paul, I don't know. But we'll see. So how would you like to begin by introducing yourself? You're on my right-hand side.
Okay, let's give it a shot. My name is Paul, and I'm in a campaign to stamp out sales breath. That's about all I got to say today. Welcome to you all, and let's have some fun.
Okay, right on. And you're in Victoria.
I am. I just looked out the window, and there I was.
Out the window, you mean? Or
yeah, I'm ready to jump, Nathan. Start my day with a little excitement.
No doubt. Heart-stopping, rather.
Welcome here, Paul. It's great to have you. So the next one is Nathan.
Oh, that's what I get for coming out with a crack like that. My name is Nathan. I'm in Ensenada, Baja, California. At this moment, some major things going on, which is why I made the comment to Jay earlier. One of the things that's happened is I am doing a ongoing series of interviewing online marketers, and I pitched it to one of my colleagues, a guy by the name of Willie Crawford, a few days ago. He said, yes, help me brainstorm a whole bunch of people to talk to. So I'm going to be interviewing a lot of well-known people in the online marketing niche, which is why I was hoping to talk to Jay. So I've got a few people lined up, like Joel Comm and Dave Taylor and a few other people, Rosalind Gardner, and so on. And these are all people who are well-known within that niche.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's what's going on.
So what platform do you plan on using?
I think I'm going to use Blab rather than Hangouts. And it's partly, well, one of the major reasons for it is that on Blab, people can stumble across you. Mm-hmm. And you can wind up building an audience really, really fast. And I don't see that so much on Hangouts. I mean, maybe I'm missing something. And if I am, please tell me. But I haven't seen that so much on Hangouts.
Well, the only thing I would say is, in terms of business Hangouts, is you can share a link on all those other platforms, and people can come in from whatever platform they prefer.
True.
So that is one advantage, I think, to the business Hangout. That if you're a Facebook person, for example, you can enter. Although you can't come into the come in as a participant. You have to register in Google in order to be a participant. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I'm expecting we're going to see a whole lot of changes, and it'll shake itself out, I think, this year. where everybody's going to end up. So that'll be, but that sounds like fun. I've done a bit of interviewing in the past, and it's really kind of interesting. Yeah. So welcome here, Nathan. So
Thank
Jay.
you.
Oh, hi. My name is Jay, and my company is Affiliate Resources Incorporated, and I help people just like you get started in the world of online marketing. And I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
Right on. Great, great to have you here, Jay.
Thank you. Oh, and 6 more sleeps until Vegas.
Oh, right. Oh,
Is your watch telling you that?
What's that?
Is
No,
your
my
watch-
yeah, exactly, my watch. Yeah. It said please remove me before you go.
Seriously. So is the trip to Vegas all fun and or all work and a little bit of fun? Like what do you expect?
Oh yes, it's all yes, it's all everything, all of that. it's I mean, you know, it's Vegas, right? So I mean, it's a kind of an excuse to have a meeting, you know, in a different place, in a fun place, right? America's playground. But the great thing is that it's 28 people from all over the world that are attending this one this year, largest one so far. So it's really neat to collaborate and you know, hang out with each other and talk about the online marketing business, bounce ideas off each other. I mean, it's one of those things where you walk away just feeling raring to go and you know, having a pocket full of great ideas and additional new connections for those who you know, you haven't met in the past. You know, and the atmosphere is very laid back because we have a couple networking meetings, like actual meetings, where we talk about the evolution of Wealthy Affiliate and where it's going, new things that are on the horizon, which are new assets to us that we can use to leverage to basically bring more people in and promote and whatnot. So, you know, so we have 2 days of that, and then the rest we have like social gatherings. We go and see a show. Usually it's a search show, but we actually went and saw Terry Fader one time. Great show. And you know, we'll go to the casino, and sometimes we'll go out to the clubs, and many times small branches of group end up breaking off into other places. Like I remember there were three of us ended up going to an Irish pub in the casino, New York. So I found it kind of funny how a Canadian went to the U.S. to go to an Irish pub in New York.
Oh, that's cool.
So, but yeah, it's a great experience.
It sounds like you will enjoy. Yeah. So welcome
Maybe,
here, Jay.
Thank you.
And Carlo, how would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Carlos Savio in Las Vegas. I'm a small business management and financial consultant, digitally fluent, and I work with other seniors here in Las Vegas in what I call digital marketing for the rest of us.
I like that. For the rest of us. That's cute. I like that. So, and of course, we know that you and Jay will meet up at some point.
Yes, looking forward to it. Yeah.
While he's in Vegas, so that's great. So welcome here again, Carlos. Nice to have you here. And I might just say I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, and I do work style, lifestyle consulting and coaching. I'm particularly interested in working with solo entrepreneurs, or solopreneurs as I like to call it. And I'm currently working on putting together a course on becoming an expert networker. I've been observing how people network or think they're networking, and I have lots of thoughts around that. So I finally decided I'm just going to develop a course and see what happens. See if it's something that people are interested in. So this morning we were going to talk about taking care of your website. And what generated that was I listened to a few people in a few hangouts promoting the work that they do, online work that they do for clients, etc., and then going and visiting their website and being absolutely shocked at what I saw. Broken links, missing images, little image boxes with nothing in them, etc., etc. And it struck me that it should be important for any of us who are doing online work, especially, to have a process where we take care of and look at our website. How's it functioning? I mean, it really doesn't make sense to just develop the darn thing and leave it there. So I've been in that process myself, looking at my website and so forth. And one of the things that Craig and I have been trying to figure out, and I actually think I figured it out last night, but I've been getting when Google crawls, I've been getting crawl errors, the 404 things, and they were just two things, two particular sites, and I couldn't for the life of me until last night, and I figure out. I mean, we've tried a number of things, and then resubmitted the sitemap and so forth. So I went through that exercise again last night, and we'll see whether I was right, whether I did actually figure out what the problem was. So that's one of the pieces that we do need to pay attention to, is if we have a website, to go to Webmaster Tools and look to see whether there have been 404s. And for the novice, the 404 just means that Google tried to visit something and wasn't able to find it. So that's one piece that I've learned, and I learned that from Craig, one of our regulars, who isn't here this morning, unfortunately. But a few other things that I've sort of noticed is that I think if we're doing online marketing, etc., etc., we need to make sure that our sites are modern and that they're updated and modernized. And that was another piece that I noticed. Like one website I went to for somebody, I could see that website, the theme that she was using was old. That old style of all that black stuff in the background and so forth. And so, I mean, I think it's important for us to keep our website fresh and up to date. And of course, I mentioned that already, checking for broken links. And that maybe there's a plug-in for that. I don't know. Maybe one of you have stumbled on something that would actually check all your blog posts to see whether those links or any of those links are broken. And the more stuff you have on your website, the longer it takes to do that. So, and then the same goes for broken images. And here's the piece that I did last night, where I think I honestly found the problem, is that when you have social media links on your site, to go to check those and make sure that they go where they're supposed to. And I think that's where my problem was. There were two of the social media sites that, for some reason, the link was the address was incorrect, and I have no idea how that happened, but I was able to correct it. But and then the share buttons, you know, what do they open properly, etc. So and of course the importance of making sure that if you use something like WordPress, to make sure that you've got the most recent updated version, and that your theme has been updated, and that your plugins have been updated.
Can I interrupt with that one last point? Because
Sure.
I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that in terms of the theme. What happens sometimes when it comes to WordPress updating is sometimes theme developers, assuming that you've got a theme that you purchased, they're always a little bit behind the updates. You know,
Yes.
they you know, the developers usually get the update announcements prior to them being publicly released, so it gives them a window to update their theme so it coincides with the latest version of WordPress. So it's really important to make sure that you check with your theme to make sure that it is updated to the latest version of WordPress. Now, if your theme is a free theme that's available on WordPress.org, you can just navigate to WordPress.org to the themes area, find your theme, and on the bottom right-hand side, it'll say whether it's compatible with the latest version of WordPress. It's very important that you do that, because what could happen, and I've seen this happen a few times, where your site could just blow up because your theme is not tied into the latest version of WordPress, so they can't talk to each other, and just kind of it just doesn't work very well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm noticing that Jay, you've posted a link to a broken link checker. Now I'm going to try and put this. Oh, here. Let's see if it works. There. There. This is my first time of sharing a comment on the screen. So.
Hey, that's so loud.
Oh, well, I just happen to have champagne here, so how appropriate.
Is that from last night?
Yeah, exactly. No, this morning.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, making sure that you do the updates, and that the plugins are all updated, and the same is true what Jay just said about themes. The plugins are sometimes a little bit delayed as well, and so it is really important to go in and make sure. The other piece that I've come to realize from I think Sue Mayanna, a recent guest that was here, she talks about the importance of not using a whole lot of plugins because they slow your system down, and to make sure that if you stopped using one, to get rid of it, delete it, because if it's sitting there, even if it's not activated, it's slowing your system down. So that was something that I learned from her. And let's see what else. Well, we said earlier, making sure that you're constantly putting new material, because Google, the Google bots, they look to see they look to see how old the material is on your website.
That's assuming you're running a blog. So
Yeah.
if you're not running a blog, like the blog, then having static pages, not updating as frequent, is okay. So, for example, a lot of local businesses will have websites, but they won't have blogs because the blogging component isn't necessary.
Who's having an airplane?
Having a blog component isn't necessarily needed for a local business, so they just choose to have static pages, and that's okay. So But yeah, I mean, so assuming you have a blog, you want to have it updated constantly because there's a date stamp associated to blog posts.
Yes.
And when it becomes stagnant, they kind of go, you know, they're obviously not updating as often as we think they should be.
Yeah. By the way, I just remembered about this week that I was going to post a link to an article that I wrote to do with things that you can do to take care of your site. It's about security and so on. Where do I post the link? I'm
Right
not
here.
sure about. Like just
right in the unified chat.
I'm not even sure that I'm on the right page. Like what I'm looking at looks like the old traditional Hangout. So.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm
well,
not sure where I'm
over on the left-hand side, you need to.
Hold on a sec. Never mind. I just found it.
Yeah.
A sec. There.
Oh, right on.
Oh,
So.
sorry, I was on the wrong display.
Yeah. So there it is. But it'll show up for anybody who comes to in here and watches the business hangout version. Will see that in the unified chat on the right hand side. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good piece that I neglected, is the whole security thing.
It's big, real
what
big.
What do we need to do to make sure that we don't that spammers are not putting things in, etc., etc. So there are a number of plugins that can be used. I did a little bit of research recently. I was hearing from various sources that Akismet, the one that has been used a great deal, is not the favored one anymore. So there are several others.
It's because they try to deceit you into paying for the plugin, whereas it is really free. You know, they have this donation, like as you sign up, they have this donation tab that starts out at like $10 a month, where you can just slide it to zero. You know, so it tricks a lot of people into buying it, where it's actually free.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, like with virus protection software. Very common thing.
Mm-hmm. So no, those are the things that I've observed and that I think about. But what about the rest of you? What other things have you do you notice when you visit a website?
If I may offer something, you said something about keeping an eye out for spammers. Another thing you could do is monitor your IP address. For those people who are in shared hosting, you may be running a relatively legitimate website, business website, and some idiot is spamming the hell out of the internet on the same IP address, and so you end up becoming blocklisted, and your emails could get bounced. So you can use something like MX Tools to alert you if your shared hosting provider, who really won't do anything about it for you if you're paying $10 a month,
Right.
will say, oh, we can't monitor that. So more than virus protection, you want to be not blacklisted.
Yeah. There's another important thing that a lot of people don't know. When you have a website, a lot of people put in something about contact me at my email address. Well, unfortunately, if you have your email address on your website, you've set up a perfect situation for bots to scan your site, and some of the spam that you may be getting may be the result of you putting your own email address on your site. And the way to do that, to resolve the problem, is to get some software that might change your email address into hexadecimal code or something else like that, where bots can't read it. And if they can't read it, they can't spam you from your own site.
Let me offer an alternative to that. Since
Sure.
Google is so good at minimizing our spam, if you consider investing $5 a month in Google Apps for work, and you run your emails through Google Apps, you will have little to no spam.
Yeah. That's what I have. I have a Google Apps account, and so I don't run into problems. But the way I've taken care of that whole email thing is you don't put the email address, you just put a form on and let it send you an email from your site.
That's the other way. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And plus, the moment you put your email address displayed on your website, or anywhere for that matter, that gives abiding by the CAN-SPAM Act in Canada, that means that an email marketer can grab that email address, pop it into their marketing system, and start sending you, solicited emails, as long as they have proof as to where they obtained your email address.
Yeah, but then you could go back into the game of whack-a-mole, filtering them into your spam bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but there's, with everything, there's lots of caveats to doing the things that we do on the internet.
You can't make things foolproof because we fools are so ingenious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's cat and mouse game, right? So, yeah, absolutely.
Which is why you set up traps, and if one trap doesn't work, you set up another one.
Yeah. If I can add some points to
I would love you to, from the voice of the expert.
I'm no expert.
I was just saying what I observe.
Yeah, very good. No, great observations. So I'm actually very glad that Carlo mentioned shared hosting, because there's lots of, so basically what happens is when you buy a small hosting package that costs like $10 a month or something, through a plethora of services, ranging from HostGator, Bluehost, which are the more common ones. When your host is on what's called an IP address, and 10 to 15 other websites could also be on that IP address. That's what they call shared hosting, meaning it's one IP address with lots of different websites on that IP address, running their business. So what Carlo was mentioning was that you could be running a legitimate business, yet someone else on that same IP address on your shared hosting plan could be, promoting something that isn't, could be spammy, scammy. They could be sending, bad emails, variety of reasons, negative things could be happening. So, and as Carlo mentioned, you can do the MX thing, that's limited to the email. Another thing you can do is there's two options. You can get yourself what's called a dedicated IP address, which is an additional cost per month, whereas you are the only one on that IP address, and that's it. So which creates a more less of a risk of getting sandboxed or hurt by Google. And the positive thing about having a dedicated IP address is that you can then install what's called an SSL certificate, which makes your website HTTPS, and you get the little lock icon in the browser bar, similar to what we all see in plus.google.com. And that basically encrypts your website, thus makes it even more difficult for the naughty people to come in and try to hurt your website. Now, again, that's an additional charge. So, well, that's an annual fee. You have to buy the certificate. But you can go to a place called Namecheap and buy an SSL certificate for less than $20, I think, for like your basic one. Don't get fooled into thinking you have to spend hundreds of dollars for these things. You really don't need to spend lots of money on them. An alternative to those two that I suggested is a service called Cloudflare. And what Cloudflare basically does is, when you buy your domain name and you have to set your name servers to your hosting, well, what Cloudflare does is it bypasses that, where you actually put Cloudflare's name servers in, and it bypasses it through, and then you can actually have a single IP address. It monitors like spam and all that kind of stuff, and it's free.
Oh.
They have paid services, but they also have a free service. And you can put in, you can add as many sites as you want in that free service. It's a wonderful service. I highly recommend it for those who are on a budget or don't feel that they could propagate spending the extra money on a dedicated IP address and an SSL certificate. But you can have all those through through Cloudflare. So it's something that you might want to take a look at.
Wow, that's very useful to know.
Well done, Jay.
Yeah. Another thing that I've noticed is website speed. So the speed of people's websites, and I think we kind of touched on it based on like plugins and whatnot. The more things you have on your website, the more time it takes to load. So if you have 10 plugins, that basically means that every person that visits your site, those 10 plugins have to load. So if you have 10 people coming to your site within a minute, that means your plugins have to load 100 times, right, within that minute. So imagine that all the time, running all the time, right? So that can immensely slow your site down. So yeah, obviously I agree with our previous speaker about limiting the amount of plugins that you put on your site, because that affects your website speed. Having a fast website actually can affect your rankings in a positive way. So if your site is fast, if you have two sites that you're competing against, two sites are competing against each other, and they've got the basic same metrics, same keywords, same content, same kind of everything, but your site is slower than the other one, then that other site is going to go up in the ranks, whereas yours is not. Because Google wants a wonderful user experience for their people who are using their search engine. So they want to ensure that the websites that are listed in their search engines are fast. So if your site isn't fast, then and I think Nathan, did you put the speed check there? You're muted, buddy.
Yep. Guilty as charged.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So so Nathan actually put in something called the Page Speed Insights, and what it does is it checks to see how fast your site is. And it kind of gives you a thumbs up and thumbs down, right? If you get a thumbs down, don't take it personally. But what they do is they tell you what is wrong with your site. Now, no one is going to have a perfect speed, right? No one's going to get a perfect score. But if you can, mitigate the possibilities of making your site faster, that's obviously beneficial. And that's a great free tool, again, by Google. Responsive design. So Google right now, people are using mobile more than desktop for search. So it's the scale has finally tipped, and it's more mobile than or tablet than desktop. So with that being said, you need to make sure and ensure that your site is responsive. And what responsive means is that your site automatically adapts to the environment it's being watched on. So, if I'm visiting your site on a phone, on an iPad or an iPhone, your site goes, oh, this person's on an iPhone, let's shift things together and make sure, there you go. So that's responsive design, right? The alternative is having a separate mobile site altogether where it redirects to like m.laolan.com. Where you can then add, custom, content and stuff to that mobile version. So that's extremely important, is to make sure you have that. Last thing I've got here is images, and which kind of goes back to the speed test, website speed test. So a lot of people, what they do is they'll source their images wherever they source them from, whether it be from stock photo sites where they buy it, or they'll source it from free Creative Commons sites or wherever, or even from their camera for that matter, And what a lot of people will end up doing is that they'll just basically take the sourced images and then throw them on their site and then just kind of resize them within WordPress. And what that does is that doesn't shrink down the actual file size of the image. It keeps, so if your image is a meg, 1 meg, and you shrink it down like inside WordPress, the file size is still a meg. It's just smaller in size, right, in physical dimension for the website. So you want to make sure that you optimize your images for the web. Now, there's a variety of tools that can do that, ranging from there's something called PicMonkey. I'll post the link later. But PicMonkey is a nice, quick, free, easy tool to take your sourced images and convert them into optimized images. So basically, what an optimized image is, it's a reduced file size so that it loads faster for the internet. The alternative is using something called Canva, which is another free tool. Canva is a little more of a design tool, but you can upload images and then like add text over top of it, and make it all fancy pants, and then output it out to a web optimized image. So well, there's my 2 cents.
Could you say, like, if on an average WordPress site, what size should the image be?
It depends on the actual site, like dimensions of the image that you want. So because one thing you should be aware of, one thing you should know is the width of your content area. Right, so let's say the width of your content area is 800 pixels wide. Okay, yeah. So you want to make sure that your images are 780. So you want to have a little bit of room beside each other, so that way the images don't kind of push out to the side. So once you have that information, all you need to do is, if you want your images to go all the way across, and then so people read your content, then see this image, and then read additional content, then you have to resize the physical dimensions of your image 800 pixels, right? From there, if like you want your text to wrap around, then you want it to be, let's say, 3, 2, 4, 6, 8. So you want it like a quarter of the size. So 200 to 250. So as long as you know the actual dimension of the size that you want your image, the software or the app that optimizes the images they'll handle that. All you need to really worry about is the actual physical size of it, right? If you use Chrome, there's actually a great tool, a great extension, you call it, called Page Ruler. Page Ruler.
Yes. I've seen that.
And I will, let's see. It's a wonderful tool. And what it does is here is a link. What it does is it creates this little tool that can measure your website environment. So right now I know that my screen here for the Hangout video is 603 pixels wide. And I'll show you what I mean. Real quick.
Just as you're doing that, I'll talk for a little bit, just so that shows up on the screen.
Yeah. So that the second link there is a screenshot of what I just did, and basically it's a little tool that'll measure. You drag it and you can see. Then you know how wide your content area is, and then you want to kind of keep a mental note of that, even post it on your side of your screen or something like that. Thus, you can then take a look and see, okay, my content area is 600 pixels, so I want to make sure my images are not wider than that, right?
And so what? Let me see if I understand what you're saying, Jay. If you adjust the image to the size that you need, then the file size gets automatically adjusted.
Yeah, so you need to go. So for example, take your sourced image, put it in PicMonkey, resize it to 800 pixels or whatever the dimensions are, and then output it for web. And then it'll reduce the file size based on the dimensions that you've specified. That's the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah. That's a piece that I struggle with all the time is the visual pieces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I really like Canva for that. I really do enjoy Canva for that. Canva does take out the art element of making things kind of fun and fancy pants. You
yeah.
know, sure, it has some little UI user interface bugs, but I think all in all, I think it's a great tool to use, and it's free,
Yeah.
and it's web based, so you don't have to rely on software on one computer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I have all my thumbnails and all kinds of things that I use in my branding are in there, and they're set up in such a way that I can go in and change the titles on things, and then yeah, it's very very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of. I mean, we've listed off a lot of things that if we have a website that we should do. And it strikes me that maybe it would be a good idea. This is my thinking anyway. The way my brain works is I really need to create sort of a checklist
Mm-hmm.
so that I don't get dragged off on something else and forget something in detail. You know, in the details. So to be able to sort of, I don't know, once every 2 or 3 weeks or a month or something, I'll go in and check all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think it's really important to, you know, just like what you said, we've discussed a lot of things and it could really eat up a lot of your time, you know. So it's really important to, you know, within that checklist is to optimize the most important things in terms of regular site maintenance. And I think, you know, out of everything we've talked about, the one tool that I would really rely on and I use the most would be Google Webmaster Tools along with Google Analytics. Google Webmaster Tools tells you, you know, how your site is performing in search and tells you if there's actually any errors on your site, you know. Google Analytics tells you how your site is performing in terms of how people come to your site, where they visit and where they leave. So I think that's really important is to if you know where people are coming from and if you know the pages that they leave and why they leave, and you can learn why they leave, that's a huge asset for you to learn about your audience. When you know about your audience and your audience's behavior, and you can mold that, and you could leverage the success of it. So if you know a lot of people are landing on page A, but then they're navigating to your what we call your money page, which is your conversion page, the people you want them to click, call, or come by kind of thing. If you know that, say, 60% of your traffic is doing that, that's really good. Then you need to leverage that intel and scale it, right? And that's what Google Analytics does, right? So combining those two tools, which are free and provided by Google, I mean, I think that's, you know, you've won half the battle, you know.
Yeah.
And as G.I. Joe says, you know, knowledge is half the battle. I think it was G.I. Joe who did that.
So Jay, what about the average solo entrepreneur who hires somebody to develop a website for them? Maybe learns a little tiny bit about going in the back end and maybe changing the odd thing or putting an announcement in or whatever, but doesn't have a whole lot of interest in learning how to do all this stuff in the back end. What would you recommend for somebody like that? And I know that among us, Paul is always the guy who will say, I have no interest in learning how to do that stuff. So what would you recommend to him? I'm sorry to put words in your mouth, Paul.
Similar to finding a good mechanic, you know, you need to find someone that you can trust and you can outsource that information. So if you can find someone that you know is reliable and affordable, you know, particularly if you can find someone within your own community, that's all fine and dandy. Alternatively, you can find people to do small gigs through a site called Upwork. So if you need someone to tweak something, a graphic or whatever, you know, then you can do that through Upwork. Fiverr sometimes. I don't really rely on Fiverr that much, but Upwork is a freelancer portal where you can hire people for small little gigs like that. But I really do think it's important to have knowledge of what's being done, not necessarily knowledge of how to do it. For example, when you take your car in, you know you need a new starter, or you know it's not starting, so you know there must be something wrong with the starter, as opposed to just kind of going, it won't start, you know. So a little bit of knowledge is a lot of power. So if you know that you need to do something and you have a general idea as to what needs to be done, that information becomes very transparent in terms of when you try to hire someone to actually, you know, do that job. Then they know exactly what it is that you want done, and then there's no kind of gray area in terms of, you know, well, I thought you needed a whole brand new site for $3,000, you know. So knowledge is power, right? And there are a plethora of great resources for like WordPress tutorials and whatnot. So.
But I was just sitting here thinking, I was remembering Mayanna, I know that what she does is she will do a site audit for you, and she does, you know, various levels of complexity. But I was thinking beyond that even. Is it possible to find somebody that you could contract with to do this kind of a check, to go through all of those things and check them all, and on a, you know, on a regular basis?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And it would really make sense to know what should be in that checklist before you try to hire somebody.
Yep.
And that you're really clear about what that person should do if they find a problem, how much time they, you know, etc. But it strikes me that we don't see a lot of people who put themselves out there as a kind of a site maintenance person.
Can I speak to that?
I see lots of people who say I'm a site developer, but I don't see a lot on site maintenance.
Can I speak to that, Lolan?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's easy enough to get a maintenance agreement with a web manager. I dislike, since the 90s, I dislike the word webmaster, because, you know, there's a lot of advanced amateurs out there. So it's easy enough if you do a search, you can find somebody locally that'll offer you a maintenance agreement. And think about this. If you have a business, be it a strictly online or bricks and mortar and online, it's the same thing as having janitorial services. You know what has to be done to clean a toilet bowl. You don't necessarily want to put on the gloves and on your knees and do it now that the kids are gone. Okay, so you can hire that. But the caveat I will offer you is be very circumspect who you give the keys to the front door of your website to on any of these Yahoo freelance services, unless, I mean, you know, when you get guys coming in from Asia, first thing you want to do is ask them to, if you can agree to work with them, send you the face page of their passport. And then you find out that they're not really in this country, they're in that country. And so you want to really be circumspect about who you let have access to your website. There's a lot of people out there that can cobble together a theme, a couple of plugins, and do a website and say, oh yeah, I'm a webmaster. But then when it comes to doing on-site and off-site audits, and there's no shortage of SEO strategists that can help you do that. There are even sites that offer that service. Unfortunately, I think a lot of their algorithms are passé, and they're only looking for certain things. But the main thing that I want to express is be careful who you give access to your site to.
Yes.
Make sure you do your due diligence. And you can, a lot of people think because they bought a website, they think that the web manager is responsible for the website. And that's not true. That's a separate business. You know, it's okay. So that's my 2 cents.
Can I, if I can add to that? I think there's Carlos added some really valuable information based on rules. You know, so it's defining roles in terms of who does what. A web designer is someone who will design a theme for your website, your WordPress, Joomla, Drupal website. That's a web designer. They are not SEO people. They are not website maintenance people. They are designers. And SEO, which is search engine optimizer, is someone who will take the web, take your site, and help you get it into the search engines by optimizing it with keyword meta titles, meta descriptions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's an SEO. A person who is what we used to call a webmaster is someone who's the basic mechanics, who takes the guts of it and will make sure that it's running smoothly and stuff. Now there's obviously overlaps with each of those roles. You know, a lot of people will call themselves web designers who also know SEO. You know, or there's a lot of SEOs that say that they know web development or website maintenance. You know, but you want to make sure that there's a clear definition of these roles, and when it comes to hiring people, you know, to do these things for you. I honestly think that having a really good checklist, if you had a good checklist, there's no rhyme or reason why you couldn't do it yourself if you had a really good checklist. It's kind of serendipitous that we're kind of going on to this, Laulan, because this is actually a webinar that I'm planning to do within the next few weeks. So it's great. Yeah, it's cool. It's pretty cool. So
are you within Wealthy Affiliate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. Absolutely. Well, and you know, in my sort of local network, I can think of a number of people who once this hangout is finished, I am going to send them the link, because I think that this information is invaluable, especially to somebody who has no interest in doing their own, you know, all their own stuff, is to even know what needs to be in the maintenance agreement, for example, you know. So I think that I think this is, and I certainly learned a number of things that I didn't know, and heard about some sources that I wasn't aware of. So I'm looking at the time. I see that.
Probably shouldn't have looked at the time.
So
there you go. Good call.
Oh, there we go. We're back. You're back.
It's getting to the point where within Google Plus there's overlapping hangouts. It gets really tough.
Well, plus it looks like your internet quarters up. You're starting to get kind of fuzzy and whatnot here. So.
So I think we better. I see we've been on an hour, but there was an hour's worth of material here for sure. So I think it's a good idea to wrap up the conversation now and stop the broadcast. And with a reminder to anyone who's watching out there, to please join the Being Your Own CEO community. I've been sharing a number of things in there. I shared something that was a lot of work for me this week, but I found a really fabulous Evernote resource and did a blog posting about it. So go to the community and you'll see lots of valuable information.
Can I just add something real quick there at the end here?
Please.
You'd mentioned that you'd spent a fair amount of time trying to figure out these problems with your site and its broken links and stuff, and that you'd finally figured it out. So obviously, I would imagine that's probably empowering to you. And yeah, but now you have that knowledge, so that if you encounter that error again, then you know what to do.
Yeah.
Thus, going back to what I said earlier, knowledge, a little bit of knowledge is a lot of power. So you probably save yourself a couple $100, trying to figure it out yourself. Yes, you spent the time doing it, and there's the time that you spent doing it as opposed to this time making money, but it was essentially a long-term investment. So I think it's really important to invest in your time in attaining additional knowledge about errors and stuff like that with Webmaster Tools. So.
Yeah, well, and I have to give a shout out to Craig, because he's been the guy who's been sort of my sounding board about this. And anyway, I just, as a result of getting the report from Webmaster Tools, I just by clicking around, I stumbled on it by accident, and we've been trying to figure out what that problem was for a while now. So, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did a great cheer last night when I realized what it was. So, yeah. So we're going to stop the broadcast now, and hope to see you all again next week. And I really want to thank you all for the support that you provide to me by being here and helping me through this whole experimentation process that we're all doing. So it's much
the invoices in the mails.
Yeah, and so's the check, so never mind.
So thank you all, and we'll see you again next week.